mitad no comida a domicilio. Y el punto de esto es, como se puede ver, hay muchísima variación entre las cooperativas. Un ejemplo de que es diferente, pues tanto Firenze como Brest no tenían dispatch dedicado nunca. Siempre el dispatch lo hacían lo que llamamos el dispatch volante. Es decir, que hacían dispatch con el teléfono mientras estaban encima de la bicicleta repartiendo. Lo cual es viable hasta cierto punto y luego no es tan viable. Otro ejemplo, que si miramos entre Firenze, por ejemplo, y Brest, que los dos son principalmente de comida a domicilio, hay costes bastante diferentes en cuanto a sus horas administrativas, como Firenze es casi el doble, y por otro lado también Eraman hace comercio local y última mía, pero tienen muchísimo menos gasto administrativo que Narvelos. Y hay que empezar a pensar, ¿por qué están así los números? ¿Qué significan esos números en cuanto a cómo funciona la empresa? Puede ser que en algunos sentidos tienen razón, en otras partes puede ser que no, que puede ser que es un indicador que la COP no está haciendo bien las cosas. Por ejemplo, yo preguntaría mucho, random punctual work, ¿qué es de Narvelos en verde por aquí? ¿Qué es random punctual work? Que es casi un 10% de tus horas en toda la cooperativa. Pues hay que definirlo bien. Si la gente tiene como una caja de cosas que es cosas random, pues no pasa nada si es 1%. Pero si son 10%, tal vez hay que entender bien qué son esos costes, cómo se justifican, a qué van. Por otro lado, Eraman te puede decir que esto no es realista. Esas son las horas estimadas que no son las horas reales. Hay muchas horas no cobradas en este momento. Ya vamos mejor en Eraman. Pero hace un año y medio, claramente hubieron horas simplemente que no pagadas. Y no lo estaba apuntando la gente porque le daba pena. Le daba pena apuntar horas que luego no se cobrara porque se ve como que estoy como, no. Pero claro, si no sabemos lo que se está trabajando de verdad, pues tenemos unos números aquí que da la impresión que solo hace falta un 12% de costes administrativos, que tal vez a lo largo no es muy realista tampoco. Hemos hecho una división entre las como tipologías de cooperativas. Entonces, aquí tenemos comercio local. Para volver a decirlo, por si no se ha entendido en el otro momento, comercio local lo usamos para hablar de trabajar como el servicio de reparto para un comercio local tuyo. Floristas, gestorías, carnicerías, no es DHL. Como se ve, los costes administrativos son mediamente altos. Se nota, por ejemplo, que en Bordeaux están llamando dispatch a muchas cosas. Lo puedo decir porque he estado ahí. Así que sé cómo llevan el dispatch. En su cooperativa, el dispatch es como un turno fijo en que haces day random, haces ventas, haces recursos humanos, haces como todas las tareas administrativas, lo hacía 2 personas durante sus turnos de dispatch. Entonces lo llamaron dispatch y listo. Que tampoco es un problema muy gordo, pero también hace que no sabemos cuánto tiempo realmente están dedicando a una cosa a otra. Entonces, por ejemplo, si tienen que de repente contratar muchas más personas, no saben qué coste eso puede involucrar para recursos humanos, porque está toda una caja que es dispatch. Mientras que la concernante sí que estaban desglosando. ¿Y eso por qué? Era porque la persona que hace dispatch no era la misma persona que hacía luego todo lo demás. Entonces tienes una persona apuntando un turno de dispatch y otra persona apuntando un turno de recursos humanos, un turno de comercial o lo que sea. Vemos que en
Paul,
Bayona...
¿estás presentando?
Ay, fuck me. Gracias, Rama.
Vale.
Esto me pasó la otra vez también. Y creo que tú me acordaste la otra vez también. Gracias. Vale. todo lo que estaba diciendo, las varias cooperativas antes eran estas, Firenze, Prest, Norberdos y Eraman. Voy a dejar un momento para que lo miráis. Y luego vamos a otro. Yes. Thank you, Rama. All right. Now that you've all seen los datos reales, ya voy a la siguiente. Esto es comercio local, lo que estaba diciendo, que tenemos aquí bordeos, que tiene un montón de dispatch y listo. Y aquí tenemos la versión ante, que tiene una variedad de cosas, pero son casi igual en el porcentaje total. Y bueno, aquí tenemos Bayonne, que es bastante por debajo, es un 10% menos que Bordeaux. Y aquí tenemos Ryan Nuth, que pues la verdad que es bastante parecida. Es decir, que los que hacen comercio local es bastante normal que tienen hasta un 40% puede ser de costes administrativos. El problema, sin duda, es que es difícil que el reparto pague todas esas horas. Lo digo ya de primeras. Última mía. Para última mía estamos hablando de DHL, estamos hablando de Seur en España, en Alemania no sé qué son, en Francia puede ser de DB Schenker, puede ser BMW, hay varias. Y aquí lo que hemos visto es una gran variedad. Es cierto, por ejemplo, que Samo trabaja con clientes que son mejores o pagan mejor que algunas otras. Y aquí tenemos un poco los extremos. Mets está aquí a que casi ni llega al 15% del todo. 85% es 86% está horas de reparto efectivo. Es que Samo, la verdad que no sé cómo estarán ahora, me interesaría porque me parece muy elevado. Especialmente lo mismo, random punctual work, creo que no sé, sin más. Aquí tenemos mensacas. Interesante, aquí el dispatch es planificar el día anterior, no es como tanto durante el turno, no es como durante el turno de reparto estar despachando, es más bien la noche anterior crear rutas y asignarlos a personas. Y luego tenemos Golia Futar, que está en Budapest, que trabajan con varios proveedores a la vez. Lo que sí se ve aquí, yo sí diría, si volvemos a comida domicilio, que vamos a ir ahora a comida domicilio. Comida domicilio, tenemos Now Food en Nantes, Le Corsair René en Rennes, Kugluf en Strasbourg y Ciclo en Grenoble. Y yo creo que también se ve aquí que la gente está apuntando la diferencia entre despacho y otras cosas de manera bastante intencional. También diría que en general se ve más peso en recursos humanos y en esto es en captación y en como marketing. Como esto aquí, Food Tech Sales, disculpe que está cortada, realmente es marketing. Y no, eso no existe para nada en las de última mía ni de comercio local. Solo está en comida domicilio. Y también eso, suele ser, Kugluf es un poco interesante porque suele tener los actividades desde hace tiempo los mismos mensajeros. Pero Ciclo, que en su momento era 25 o 30 personas, Ren, que son casi 20, como hay bastante necesidad de estar gestionando el equipo de mensajeros, sus horas, metiendo nuevas personas en el grupo. Ya cuando es común que estás metiendo gente nueva, se tiene que dedicarle tiempo. Entonces, un poco de lecciones. Pues, de hecho, no. Voy a empezar por aquí. Estos números en vuestras cooperativas o asociaciones, lo que sea, ¿sabéis lo que son? Más o menos. Veo one no, veo otra cara haciendo que no, y luego no veo muchas otras caras. Emojis, gente. Hay emojis. Se puede, ¿ves? Mira. Thumbs up. No. Not log hours. Okay. Is there anyone? ¿Hay alguien que sí cree que tenga estos números? Vale. Eso ha sido en parte de influencia mía. All right. Pues, ¿por qué es importante? Pues primero voy a hacer lo que dice la ¿cómo se dice en castellano? Slide. Bueno, slide. Y luego también daré un poco más de opinión mío. Pero primero,
Diapositiva.
¿cómo?
Diapositiva.
Sí.
Sí.
Pues no voy a acordarme de esa palabra.
Slide.
Voy a seguir con slide. Vale, pues eso es muy importante. En la economía real, tiempo y dinero crean trabajos, no otra vez. Que estamos muy acostumbrados a ser empleados, en que mi idea es que cojo un trabajo y me pagan, con lo cual el trabajo me crea dinero. No. Como empresa eso no es real. Porque las cosas ya se hacen, los trabajos ya existen, las floristas se hacen reparto de alguna manera. Lo hacen ellos, o lo hacen con un competidor tuyo, o no reparten porque les da igual. Pero hay ya una solución al problema que tú quieres resolver. Aunque tu solución sea mejor. Entonces, para crear trabajo como empresa, requiere tiempo y requiere dinero. O no lo vas a conseguir. Entonces, son costes que no tenemos en cuenta, no imaginemos que son importantes, por lo cual no les damos importancia, por lo cual nos hace difícil crecer como empresa. Luego también es muy importante que es una cosa tú hacer reparto con un cliente tuyo, con el WhatsApp, y ya está. Y es otra cosa llevar un equipo de 10 personas. Y para que un equipo de 10 personas pueda funcionar, requiere sistemas, requiere... Oh, espera, una pregunta. Helen, ¿tú hablas francés? Helen, you speak French? Because you're from Germany. Yeah, I'm just going to check it. I just realized that might be a problem. Sorry for pausing. Sikelwood, do you guys speak French over there? Arthur, can you tell if Helen is in the Telegram chat or not? No. Okay. Ah, shit. Maybe I should switch to English then. Arthur, would you kill me if I switch to English?
Yes, you can. You can, but slowly, please.
Slowly. Okay. All right.
Slowly.
All right. I'm going to switch to English.
Time.
Sorry, Helen. Okay. So what I was saying there was that, like in this case, the service we offer is delivery. In which case, delivery already happens or not. There's already there's already someone solving this problem. Either a florist either delivers it themselves, or they work with one of their competitors, or they just don't do delivery and people have to come pick it up because they think it's too annoying. If we want to create that as a job for ourselves, it takes time and money to go talk to the florist, convince them, make price, all these things. So as a person, as an individual worker, jobs get you money. But as a business, time and money create jobs. Your investment creates the job. And if we don't value that, we don't do it, and we don't have any work. The second point is that admin work is really important for growing the cooperative, because I'm getting feedback from someone. I'm gonna mute Adam because I think it might be him. So if when you're delivering as one person or two people with WhatsApp, you don't really need any systems. You just kind of talk to each other and figure things out. When you're managing 10 people, that is not viable. And what often happens is, as a business grows, if people don't make systems, you end up having very, very, very inefficient ways of organizing the work. And so there needs to be dedicated administrative time to implementing good processes to make the business run well. In the same way, like the way that a business grows and is successful growing is administrative time and money invested in creating systems that'll be profitable long term. The reason why this is crappy and unhelpful and difficult for us is that the more you have, the more you have to fund the business in general. So if you start with no administrative hours because you're two people, and then you get to 5 and you need dedicated time spent on paying invoices, then you need to make sure that time is priced into your pricing rules, which often it isn't. And in my cooperative, this isn't the case, and I advocate for per hour same pay rate inside of a single organization on a personal level. But for a lot of other people, administrative hours cost more than delivery hours. Which means that while we need to make sure that we're doing them, we need to take this seriously. We also don't want to let these hours balloon out of control. Automation is obviously really important. CoopCycle believes in automation. A lot of businesses spend a lot of money on marketing or on commercial, and it sort of disappears, and it's hard for people to tell how effective it may have been. So we want to be especially careful with sort of black holes like marketing and commercial. And who's muting me? It's the third time I've been muted. It tells me if I've been muted, thankfully. Any questions about this? We've established that nobody has their numbers. Even though no one has their numbers. Do we have any questions about this? Well, Cyclone, half dispatch, half routing. Does anyone think, has anyone looked at this and says this is insane? Like, are there businesses here that don't count their administrative hours, for example? I'm going to pick on you, Helen, because you're an English speaker, and so there's no lag with the translation. Do you guys how do you guys know how much do you count all of your different hours? Are you paying all of your administrative hours? Do you know what that sort of looks like? Also, I don't know much about you guys, so I'm curious. But she does have a bad Wi-Fi connection. All right, I guess Helen has a bad Wi-Fi connection. All right, I'll just continue forward then. So basically, key lesson here, you need to have the numbers at the very least. And you need to take administrative hours seriously, both in doing them, but then also in not letting them get out of hand, especially because it's very easy for things to become normalized. So someone starts doing 10 hours a week of commercial work, and then they maybe aren't super effective, but nobody wants to say that in the assembly because they feel mean about it. And then a year later, there's still these 10 hours of commercial work that aren't being effective, that are just making the business less profitable. We are collectives, and there's a lot of interpersonal dynamics, but in my cooperative, what we've tried to do in the past is have sort of missions. So for 3 months, we'll give someone this many hours a week to do whatever. And then automatically in 3 months, we have to sort of readdress the issue. And it's not like you're saying, oh, I should take away these hours. Like, no, the mission ended. We should now reassess how it's gone and what we should do. It sort of allows for, it automatically allows for those things to be evaluated without making someone feel bad. So the main thing to do here is we're imagining that you have been approached by a new client and you want to know what to do. Because the client says, I have 100 packages in this area of the city. What are you going to charge me? So I'm just going to start with the question, and I'm actually going to try to force everyone to talk and answer me, even if you have bad connections. Right now, if someone came to you and said, I want 20 packages delivered in the center of my city, would you be able to offer them a price that you know would make you money? I'm going to start just with what I see on the screen. So Clement from Be Fast. If a client came up to you and just said, I need 20 deliveries in the center per day, how would you give them a price? And are you sure that you would be making or losing money?
Oh, per day, 20 per day? 20 packet per day?
Can other people hear Clement?
I don't understand.
Oh shit, I can't hear you. 1 second, I need to change my, I'm having problems.
One client.
Sorry, I didn't hear what you said because my computer did a stupid thing. Can you repeat what you said, please?
I'm
Creo que
for the price for one delivery is around €5 per packet.
And if someone said, I need 20 packages delivered per day, would you offer them the same price?
€5.
And what if they're sofas?
For 20 for 20 packets, it's €5
per package. And are you sure that right now, if you take 20 new packages per day at €5 per package, that you will earn more money?
Yeah, I think.
Is it possible that you would need more people doing hours, or do you have enough messengers in BeFast?
In our case, I think not, but
yeah. All right. And do you have specific prices for like extra weight, for extra distance, or for urgency, or any of those things?
in our cooperative in the town, we do it's a price for the town, it's a price around the town.
All right.
And it's a price for we have a price for in 4 hours, and we have a price for express in 2 hours.
All right. Hector, if someone came to Pamplona and said they want to do 20 packages a day in downtown Pamplona, do you know what would happen?
I have here we have like a price table, but it's quite similar. So it depends on like how much far away is from the center of the city. But if it was like the pickup and also delivery in the center of or around the center, then it's €5. And it gets more expensive depending on weight, distance, and also how much time do you give us to prepare the delivery.
So pretty complete, sounds like.
I guess.
Helen, how about you guys? Is your internet connection working? I think we're gonna have to count Helen out. Rama, how did you guys make your prices?
Yes, similar than this Remy's made. I don't know the name now. But we have like a table, a price table. Like it's general, but if someone comes to us offering like a service of 20 packages per day, maybe we have to sit down and think a little bit more. Because for random packages during the week, it's okay, like the general price table, but 20 packages per day, you will need to think about how to do it. Maybe we need an extra effort, so maybe we need to think about which is the best time to do it, and offer like a cheaper price if we can do when we can, and if they are like telling us when they want the service, maybe it's a little bit expensive if we need to more resources. But well, there are similar prices, €5.5, and extras for distance,
How do
urgency.
you guys come in? How do you guys create those prices? Where did the €5 come from?
It's a little bit of a comparison with other co-ops or other members of some Ecologistica in Catalonia, but we have not created the price analyzing the costs. So
Yep. Okay. So I think maybe I'll show. So the goal of this is to be able to do that. So
yeah.
What I was sort of hoping to show is that most people, when I ask how did you find your price, a lot of them will say, well, I looked at some other person and it said 5. So I said 4. Or I looked at I asked the client what they would be able to pay and they said this. So I said, yeah, okay, that works. And like many things, that works when you're maybe just you, but as things get bigger, it gets a little bit harder. This system that we're going to go through was built by Serge from Ryan Neuf, and they have something like 15 people writing. So it's a relatively medium-sized cooperative. It's at the point where it's important to make sure that every hour of writing is making money. So you need to know your own costs. You need to know your constraints. So constraints are like how far you're going to go, what is the maximum package size you might be able to do, that type of thing. Understand the client's conditions As we all know, everyone just calls and says, "Can you deliver a thing?" And you're like, "Yes." And then, but how? Like, it turns out it's heavier or it's bigger or they want it urgently. And they don't always tell you at the beginning.
Sorry, what's constraint?
A constraint is something that makes things more difficult for you. So perhaps you don't want to take things that are above a certain weight. Or maybe in regards to your mornings are very busy, so you'd rather do things in the afternoon. Sort of thinking about what makes your work harder or easier. So understanding your costs is relatively simple. This is an Excel that I'm going to share with you guys. We'll show you how it works. First, there's some screenshots, and then I'll show the actual Excel. But as we talked about last time, people should have a list of what their costs are. Here we have hours. This is an example, I believe, of Serge's cooperative in Belgium. Obviously, the biggest thing is hours on the bike. There's dispatch, there's meetings, communication marketing, random work files, mechanics, HR hours, accounting hours, follow-up client payment, invoicing, other invoicing, food, diverse calls/meetings, last mile and local commerce acquisition, restaurant acquisition, and warehouse management. The insurance, rent, CoopCycle contribution. They also spend some money on other Federation Belgian cooperative thingies. Amortization of the bicycles. Amortization, I'm going to assume not everyone knows this. If you buy a bicycle for €1,000, the typical time in which you imagine the bike will last in Spain is 5 years. So every year you should be amortizing 1,000 divided by 5 is €200. Because at the end of 5 years, you'll need to buy a new bicycle. Cooperatives that have messengers with their own bicycles don't have to do this, but usually if you're working at this scale, you'll have bicycles of your own. Accounting, communication, lawyer, other softwares, internet, blah, blah, blah. Finally, it's very important, average cost of worker per hour. This can't be Belgium because that's not a Belgian wage. And that will give you your total costs. Which if you have your total costs, the total hours ridden, you can have a break-even point per hour. What does that mean? If our total costs are 22,140 plus 5,704, that is 27,844 euros. We have 1,000 hours of riding a bicycle. That means in order to pay for 27,844 euros in this month, in 1,000 hours, we need to make 27.84 euros per hour of messaging. We did last year an exercise with all of the cooperatives to try to figure out what their break-even point per hour was, and we got numbers that went from 18.6 to 27.9. 27.9 is a last local commerce people in Paris with a lot of administrative hours, and 18.6 are last mile cooperatives in Barcelona and Metz, which are both less expensive than Paris and have a lot less administrative hours. Fair to say that nobody here would know what their break-even per hour rate is, right? Does anyone know their break-even per hour rate?
Sorry, a question.
Yeah.
That's like the higher price you have got per hour this month or the average?
This is the average. So this is maybe in Cyclope's case, the work
It's like 17, I think.
Ah, nice. You're new and you already know the break-even per hour price.
Yeah, because Remy is pretty like all the time talking about this stuff. So, but I think maybe 17 is for local commerce, and the average one is a little bit lower, but I'm not sure.
It's possible. So the important thing is it's just all of the things you have to pay for in the month divided by the hours in which you're on a bicycle. And if you don't hit that number, it means you can't pay for everything. And this is really important because, for example, if the break-even point is 28 euros an hour and your base price is 5 euros, tax included, probably, maybe, depends. Well, then you have to do what, 7 to 8 deliveries an hour minimum, which is for local commerce a lot of deliveries, right? That's even relatively high for last mile for working with something like DHL. So this number is a key number, and the only way to know it is to have all of your costs written out and the number of writing hours written out. So what's important, though, is that this is the current existing simulation. Currently, these are my costs. Currently, these are my hours. Currently, I need this break-even point. But you probably don't want to be working with that forever. I imagine most people here want to raise their salaries. They might want to change the space that they work in. They might, whatever, lots of different things. So it's very important to, on the one hand, have your current costs in mind, but also know where you're going. Because, for example, if you get a new client and you sign a contract with the client for a year in the future, you are effectively locking in what you can pay for the next year. And inflation is a thing. So, in this case, I think that the only thing that was changed was putting in 20 euros an hour instead of 13.5, which, as you can see, makes the break-even per hour go up to almost 40 euros. The point here is to have two. Have the current and have your, what do I want maybe next year? You should be using both. Basically, one is a bottom price and one is a top price. If you get a client, this gives you your range. I can work between 27 and 38 euros an hour average income, which, based on all the things we're going to look at, I think your price can be from here to there. If you really, really need a client right now, then you go with the current hours. But if you're planning a strategy for the future and how you're going to grow and going after specific new clients, you should definitely be looking at the future estimated one. Interesting questions that are going to help us answer some of these questions. How many more writing hours can you handle with the same administrative time? So one very clear example I will use is food tech. Many people use flying dispatch a lot. That's okay. That's good. It's a smart thing to do. But my experience is that after around 15 to 20 deliveries per shift, it is very difficult to do flying dispatch because you have to do too much writing and too much dispatch. And so when you pass by maybe 15 deliveries in one night, all of a sudden you need sitting down dispatch. And all of a sudden your costs are different. That's an example of, if you add more writing hours, at some point, the administrative time changes. Same thing. Maybe you have 3 people working together in a small group and it's going really well and you all like working with each other and things are great. And then you need to add a 4th person. And adding a 4th person, it turns out that you if someone enters, but they didn't like the job very much, and after 2 months they left, so you now have to look for another new person. That person stays around, but then they got sick, so they're off, so now you need someone new. That 3rd person took a really long time to train. All of a sudden, you have a human resources cost that you didn't have when you just had the 3 people that already knew how this works. Good vibes, everyone knows what's going on. Second question, what are levels of business or decisions that will make admin costs go up? Use this tool to affect those changes. So for example, if you get a new last mile customer, maybe you need a different space. Maybe you need trailers. Maybe you need to electrify your bicycles. In any case, there are types of clients that are possibly a very good idea. Possibly they're a very good client and you want to move forward with that. But you have to take into account those investments that you're going to have to make. Same thing. Maybe you just want to do the investment because you want to do the investment. Maybe you want a bigger space because your space sucks and there's no new client, but you want a new big space. Great. Well, redo all of this with that bigger space, and maybe you have to up your prices to your clients. Last point, it is super important, admin and time effectiveness. This happened really hard at Eraman. At Eraman, 2 of us at the very beginning, we were 4, 2 of us did all of the administrative work. And we were people that had experience doing administrative work in other job settings. So we did the invoices in 3 hours at the end of the month. We gave it to someone else, and it took them a long time. It took them like 20 hours to do the invoices. Commercial capture. You have a good commercial capture, they can spend a couple hours and you have a new client. Someone who's bad at commercial capture can spend 40 hours not getting any clients. So it's really important to make sure that the admin hours are effective. But I'm not sure why that's in this part of the presentation, frankly. We went over that earlier. So I got muted again. All right. So this is the situation some people are in. I have a current break-even point to pay my current costs. I have my idealistic breaking point in the future where I'm getting paid even more. And right now I'm over here on the left. I just don't know it. And if my hourly rate of the co-op is less than my current break-even point, I'm not paying all my expenses, and we're going to have to not pay some stuff like hours. This is where also a lot of people are, which is that they're sort of just above their current break-even point. They feel good, and this is okay. This is good, not bad, but it becomes a problem when people start asking for better salaries or paying for administrative time, or you integrate new people into the group. And lastly, this is what we should be looking for. If we have an idealistic break-even point, when we're offering new clients a price, we should be offering them closer to the idealistic break-even point. And as time goes on, move older clients towards it as well. But any new client means we're talking about the future, 1 year in the future, 2 years in the future. So if we're talking to a client, we should be talking about what we want to be earning in 2 years, not what we want to be earning now. Any questions about this? Go ahead. Yep.
I just have one. Yeah. One of the most the difficult thing we have here in Belgium with a new cooperative is like to estimate the time. Like it's very difficult to estimate when you don't have any experiences, and so sometimes some deliveries you can charge the administrative time and the writing time, but when you don't know this, it's very complicated. We tried this file with Serge, and I was just like, I'm not able to fulfill the case, so I will stick to a basic tarification system, which is fixed and not very good. And we hope in 1 year we can add the correct numbers and estimate a little bit better, because it's always almost impossible when it's a completely new client with a new business process. You cannot estimate, and we're just like, okay, it's difficult for us to manage this kind of file. But I don't know if there is some rule. I don't know if it's possible, but to estimate, like, okay, mainly you can expect 6 hours of writing and have 2 hours of admin for these 6 hours. I don't know if it exists, because I saw all the charts, and every COP is different. You have to 6:4 ratio or 8:2 ratio.
Yes, it's true that many cooperatives have different prices or different administrative hour situations. That said, I think that given the activity you guys have, I definitely wouldn't imagine, like, one thing we can say from looking at these numbers is below 25% is probably unrealistic, right? What this gives you at least is a range. Your range is 37.5% administrative to 25% administrative. Since you're new, you're probably excited. You're probably going to do some extra hours, even if they're not paid. Maybe right now it's okay to work with more 25%. But keep in mind that you might also in the future find out you are more like Serge and you need 37.5%. I would also say that while this is a good range to have, something that's really important is go higher. If you don't know what to do, go higher. And the reason why is that there have been actual psychological studies of customers and how they react to increases and decreases in price. And if you look at the difference in a price going up by €1 or going down by €1, if the price goes up by €1, a user gets really, really, really mad. They find it very upsetting. If it goes down by €1, they don't really, like, it's nice, but it doesn't feel very good. I think we can all imagine this. If you go to the supermarket and you see that the brick of milk that was €6 yesterday is now 5. Oh, cool. Discount milk. Nice. Go home. You probably forget about it. If you go to the store and the €6 milk is now €7, you're probably going to go home and be like, what the fuck? And complain to your roommate / partner that they've upped the price of the milk. The milk's gone up, and there'll be like conversations for a week about the price of the milk having gone up because you find it very upsetting. Maybe this isn't the case for you, but lots of businesses did a lot of work sending psychologists to talk to users. And it looks like the difference is 9 times. People get 9 times more upset by a €1 price increase than they are happy about a €1 price decrease. So many new projects say, well, I'm going to start my price low because I'm new. I want to get clients. Like, I'll start low and then I'll increase my prices in the future. And that's actually not very good because you create an expectation of a low price and then make everyone mad when you increase your prices 6 months in, when you realize that you have to pay administrative hours. On the other hand, if you start with higher prices, what you're doing is you're starting probably with the most interested and motivated clients. Like, the first clients you have might be like friends of your parents or friends of friends or the shop down the road who knows you, who are like kind of willing to pay a little bit extra because they like you. Or they're people that they're new clients and they like have been waiting for sustainable delivery because they're ecological or something. They're like, yes, like whatever, I will pay for the ecological delivery. Those people will pay a higher price. So then you can make it go down if you see that you can for other clients that are less excited about the sustainable delivery thing. So, but it's probably better to start high and then go low than the other way around. It's hard in practice. I know. I also started a cooperative. It's very difficult, but it makes a lot more sense to do it that way.
Yes, we kind of did this because also there were another cooperative until January working in bikes in Namur, and they fell down because of low price. So we went with a new service almost as the same as there, with an increase in pricing of 30% because their price were not indexed since 6 years. So they were working for almost nothing, and they bankrupt at the end. So
Yeah.
we went with only one first client for this month, and we did it like this. Okay, we will be completely open on the tariff. This is the new tariff with a 30% increase, and then we'll find at the end of the month if it's still okay for you or if we need to negotiate. And for the moment, it's okay. And for us, we are just like, okay, this is when we compare to the other cooperative, we did a very good month in September, and maybe we can find other clients like this and try to go on beyond. But it's very difficult because we have like with a very big price, and it's just like, okay, it's super expensive to work with us, and we hope we will continue, and we will see. For the moment, the 2 clients are just like very good friends or very lucky to like bikes, and so they are okay with this price. But if we know have to negotiate with other clients, we know we will decrease a little bit the price. It's not sustainable for them.
Yeah.
But
I think that also highlights something else that's important, which is price increases. It's way easier to up your price 3% on January 1st and send out an email saying, due to inflation, as we do every year, we're increasing our prices 3%, than waiting 6 years and then having to go up 30%. So even if it kind of hurts to do it yearly, and clients maybe call you and they're a little upset, I promise that is way less upsetting than 30% 6 years down the line. So please do that. Similar idea, right? About managing expectations. Any other questions about current costs, expected costs, and establishing a per hour rate?
Can I see the slide of the 4 steps to here? Another client, make the offer. Okay.
So we're still on know your costs.
Yeah.
All right. So know your constraints. So the biggest thing with us is the time it takes to do things. This is different from some other industries. If you make trains, the most important thing is like how much does steel cost? But we're in a service, not a product business. So our main cost factor is time. Again, I'll show the full Excel in a bit, but the idea here is, well, first off, what's the average riding time? In Belgium, in Liège, apparently there's zone 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. And the average time for delivery in those zones are 10, 15, 20, 25, and 30 minutes. That seems really suspiciously perfect to me. So I'm guessing that that's kind of made up, if I'm being honest. So for example, in my city, downtown would be less than 10. Then there'd be a medium zone, which would probably be like close to 15. And then there'd be a third or fourth zone where it'd be like really 40 or something. And it's because our city is weird. It's a circle with some specific hills. But you can define zones and you can say what the average time it would be to do one delivery in that zone. Size of packages. Again, here you have to think about it. You have to experiment, but you can make 4 different types of sizes and you can put percentages at which this will make the delivery more difficult. This is pretty open to interpretation. Just be like, okay, I have an envelope, 0%. That's my base. Now I get a dog food bag that's 20 kilos. How much is that going to make my job harder? How much am I going to value walking 20 kilos up a stairway to a 3rd floor apartment? I'm going to let Arthur translate. How much slower might I go on the bicycle because I'm carrying something super heavy, right? How much extra time might it be to put the package on the bicycle without it breaking? Blah, blah, blah. Last, any special requests. If people want you to check the temperature or they want you to like stand there while they like count everything. If you want them to do a return delivery or it's whatever, add a similar % increase to the work it's going to take you to do it. Some other examples are time, urgency. Clement said that they had like 4-hour windows, urgent window, flash window. That's the same idea. How much harder is it for me to do a delivery that has to be delivered the next hour compared to a delivery that's the entire afternoon? So run some tests. CoopCycle can be useful here. There's a thing you can download from the map page, export button, and we'll show you the time at which everything was picked up or dropped off, as long as your messengers swipe the swipe. That can tell you interesting and useful information, right? You can look at, for example, one client and see, well, what's the average difference between the pickup and the drop-off time? That data does exist if you do things well. A lot of it is just sitting down and thinking like, well, now I have a bigger package. What do you think? How much, like 20% harder? And definitely think about sizing of packages if you're doing local commerce, especially because there's things like 1 letter is 0, 5 letters is maybe 5% harder. But then like a sofa is just, I'm not doing a sofa. Like it's over 100%. That's knowing how hard it is for you. Then you can use the client's data. A lot of people already do this with someone else. Maybe they do it themselves. Maybe they have some person on a motorcycle. Maybe they contract a small business with vans. They can probably tell you, well, like, how many stops do I have in these zones? How is it being organized? How long does it take me to give the rider, whatever. I'll show you the Excel again, but the point here is that in each zone, they'll tell you, well, like, I have these 50 stops in zone 1, I have 30 in zone 2. There's this ratio means that the more deliveries you have, the more efficient you are. Because, of course, if I go a faraway zone with 1 package and I come back slow, if I go to a faraway zone with 40 packages, once I'm there, it's easy to deliver the 40. And this creates a break-even rate for per package, per zone, and for a route. I'm going to give you the Excel, don't worry. But the idea here is that you can come up with a price that has specific numbers for the client that come in a nice little table. So I'm going to go to the Excel. This is, I'm going to make it bigger actually, the current breakpoint calculation. As we see, 1550, that was 1330, what, doesn't matter. So we have the hours that we've worked, we've got the things that we're going to pay for, we've got our total cost of 30,000 euros, total hours ridden, break-even point. Awesome. But in the future, we want to pay ourselves more. So we have either 29 euros or 33.5 euros. We can imagine we've been asked a client to give a proposal for delivery. So we maybe have this information already filled out, right? Downtown 10 minutes, outskirts 15 minutes, zone 3, 4, and 5 are get farther away very fast. So 17, 25, and 30. These are some examples of package sizes that Serge made. So size normal, 80 centimeters by 80 centimeters, size 3 and size 4, 0, 10% harder, 20% harder, 100% harder. Serge decided that for them, 20% harder for a temperature check, 30% for whatever specific client process that is. Return trip, because if you're already coming back, maybe it's not double, so it's only 20% harder. Fragile, etc., etc. Time, so all day is the basic. And for 2 to 4 hours, Serge should decide that for their cooperative, that's 50% harder. And for 1 to 2 hours, it's 100% harder. And then prior notice, similar idea. How early do we know about the delivery? Base is more than 24 hours. You put 30%, 50%, 100%. The idea is to make a copy of this. You guys will have it, and you can put in your own numbers. And then you put in, well, my client said they have 40 deliveries in downtown, they have 20 deliveries in the outskirts, they have 30 deliveries in zone 3. And again, this is kind of ugly and can be done a different way, but what Serge did was say that if it's 3 packages, it's 97%. 4 packages, 92, 5 packages, 87. I don't know how he made these numbers, but above 7 packages, it's 0.8. That means is that there's a 20% efficiency in having more than 7 packages in a zone. You guys could go in and change everything, or you could just kind of go with Serge's assumptions, but at least you get some type of an idea. If we put here 5, these numbers change. The ratio changes, the break-even point per package, the break-even for the route, all of those things get different. You move. So the idea here is to use this by moving down. First you put in type of packages. Then you ask what is the size of package that they're going to be using, which asks the other sheet what they are. 80 by 80 and centimeters, and it adds the ratio. Ask, well, they do want a temperature check, and they do want us to do a return trip, but nothing else. Day long, 24 hours, more than 24 hours prior notice. And it's important, what margin do we want? We want to make money. We want extra money. There's a margin. You're supposed to have margin. Margin means you made profits. We're supposed to make profits as cooperatives. Does not make us capitalists to have some profits. So this client has said, well, I have every day 40, 20, and 30 packages in these zones. They're this type of package. I want a temperature check. I want to come back to the client. I'll give you this type of thing. And we've said, well, we want a 15% margin. The total price for all of those deliveries should be 870 euros, and the average top per price comes out to 9.76 euros. This then turns into a nice little table, which you could even send the client. It would look super professional. Does this make sense to people? What I'm going to do next is I'm going to say, this is really complicated. I'm going to ask more questions in a minute, but this is very complicated because it is made for a situation where someone comes to your cooperative and says, I want to do, what's the total? 90 deliveries a day. If someone comes to any of us at our current scale and says, I want to do 90 deliveries a day, you want to take it seriously. You want to do a simulation, right? But that's not always the case. So I made a second example. And I just made this like an hour before the class. So it's ugly, but I want to show that it's not very hard to make some of these simulations. So what I've done was I simply took all of our hours. So we use Sling. This is for our time tracking. I can go to Sling and I can say, well, for food delivery, the shifts are called comida and cena. Awesome. Well, in October, we had 411 hours and 25 minutes of food delivery. Great. 411.5. And we just did the same with all the different things. These are all of the different hours that we have for the different activities. Democratic time is 0 because right now we don't pay it. Sometime soon, we hope to, by end of year. This can give us the cost for October for that activity. And as you can see, administrative hours, we have to decide how much of that is paid by the different things we do. In Eraman, we do last mile, we do food delivery, and we do local commerce. We also do other things, but I decided to make this simple, and I didn't put in training and other stuff. So we could say that last mile deliveries with DHL don't take very much administrative time. We don't have to deal with emailing the client, and it's pretty easy. We just do the work and then we get paid at the end of the month. So 10%. Food delivery is 75% because a lot of our administrative time is related to food delivery because it's complicated. And then local commerce, 15%. Awesome. Do the same thing with all the different things. Like, so for example, rent is a lot higher on on last mile food delivery, and it's almost 0 for local commerce because you can do local commerce even without an office. You just need a cargo bike. And then we add those up here. Here we have all of the costs for last mile, food delivery, and local commerce, except for the writing hours. This is CoopCycle. This is a giant, really annoying and ugly Excel you get from the map of CoopCycle. But there are these very lovely things called pivot tables where you just say, I want to do this data and I want to see it here. And then you get to say, well, I want you, then you say the rows. So for example, sum of order total for each organization. It gives you some suggestions. What I've done is I've asked for the amount of money Eraman gets for each client that's in the platform. And then I wrote down food delivery, local commerce, or last mile. So again, it's ugly. I apologize. But what this does is it says last mile delivery. Great. 3,139. Other costs. So what is last mile paying for rent, for phone, for bike amortization, all those things? I probably missed some things because I did it pretty fast. And then what is our income? Which is I asked over here, can you sum everything that's here without the taxes if in this column it says last mile? And it's the same for local commerce and for food delivery. as you can see, this tells me that in last mile, we made 45 euros. In local commerce, we had a bad month, actually, negative 129. We're going to look into why that's the case. And then food delivery made about 700 euros. So what this tells me is I can start, for example, I know how many hours we did last mile delivery is, for example, last mile delivery, and I want to know how much we made per hour. So let's go with the income. Income divided by the total writing hours. We made 16.61 euros per hour working in last mile delivery. We can look at the same for, yeah, let's do that, but we have to change you to, oh no, that actually worked because you're below it, okay? Equals this divided by the amount of hours in food tech. So as you can see, we have 16.61, 15.31, and 23.14. So this is actually useful information. This tells me that for right now, I probably need to have per hour income in local commerce of around 16 euros as well per hour. I basically just found my price floor. If a client comes to me and says, I want to do 20 deliveries a day, I'm going to have to imagine, well, how many do I think I can do an hour? Is it above 16 euros? What I'm going to charge them? I have a good idea. And then I know that if I want to imagine a future where, like food delivery, we're investing money in commercial, we're investing money in marketing, we're investing money in HR, well, if we can, so between 17 and 23 is now my range, right? So this Excel, I think is actually, I didn't make the Excel, so I can say honestly, I think it's a very impressive Excel. I think it's a very complete and large Excel that takes you through the process of what is my current cost structure, what would I like my cost structure to be, how are my conditions making my work harder or easier? I input the client request, and it makes me a pricing model. But it does require a lot of time, and it's a lot of work for maybe a smaller client. You can also do a simpler version of this by just like writing this stuff down and thinking about it. You can start with just saying, what are my total hours every month? Writing, what are my total costs, and divide them. And now you have a number. But we have to start with that number, and if you don't have that number, you're not calculating well your prices. If you look at someone else's prices, it says 5 euros, and then you say, well, I'm going to do 5 euros. Their price might suck. They might not be they might not be paying their administrative hours, right? So those are two examples of how to come to a price in a more calculated way. Questions? I see Crow just came in the chat. Who's here from Crow? Is that Jerome? Come on, people, respond. Tyler here. Awesome in the chat. Tyler, I'm also going to ask you questions because I don't know a lot about Crow. This always happens in the meetings. I'm sorry. It's like I know a lot about Ciclope and Pamplona, so I just call out the people I don't know because I want to know more about their collective. So how do you guys in Crow come up with prices?
Can you hear me?
Yep.
Yeah. A lot of it is kind of guesstimations, I would say. Nothing as fancy as this sheet, but yeah, we had a pretty big client coming to us a couple of years ago. We don't work with them anymore, but yeah, we kind of estimated what's the average size of the delivery because it was bike parts being delivered. And we figured we could do at least a few deliveries an hour. And so we said, yeah, 10 per stop, anywhere in the city, pretty much. And we found that at least in a city of Berlin size, 10 is usually working for shipments up to a moving box. but it really depends on density and where you go in the city.
Nice. So that reminds me, one thing that's useful about this is that you can show this to the client, and maybe the client says, well, listen, I can't pay more than €9 per stop. Great, no problem. Then let's only do downtown and outskirts. Like you said, you guys have found something that's good for, like, depending on where you are in the city, right? Like, a lot of people will come and they'll want just one price. They don't want a fancy complex matrix, and that's okay. One thing you can say then is like, okay, tell me what your price point is, and then we'll tell you what we can or can't do in those situations. Okay, no worries. So I think one thing that's important is, like, you know, the client is going to pressure you to do everything. They want everything. They want the best. They want blah, and they're also price sensitive. So one thing that we often do, in fact, I might just pull up Eraman quickly, is that we do price differentiation. If someone says that they want a cheap price, we can give them a cheap price, but it has to be under certain conditions. So this is why it's all in Spanish. I'm sorry, it's for florists, but you can get, I'll just put, actually, that's the same address. So 1 second. So as you see, we also have €5 as our cheapest delivery. It's very worrying to me that in the cheapest parts of Spain, the most expensive parts of France, it seems like the same basic price exists everywhere, and I don't think that something's wrong there. It worries me, but whatever. We don't have to talk about it right now. So if you have with more than 12 hours of anticipation, with less than 12 hours of anticipation, and what changes is that here it's 1 hour delivery because we have a day to plan it, or it's 2 hours of delivery because we don't have a day to plan it. And then we have special, like, we do food tech, so we can do it on Saturday, just like it'll be sometime around lunch. We're going to do food tech, and we're going to do food delivery, and we'll deliver your thing whenever we can. All this is €5, but then if they put, no, I need it at 6:15, now it's €10. Sorry, €9. And what's happened is all of our clients have learned to ask us for deliveries with 12 hours of advance warning, which is what we wanted in the first place. So same thing, you get someone who comes in, maybe they're like Nescafe or someone with like a significant numbers of deliveries. We'll tell them, like, at your price point, what you're offering me in price, I totally understand. You guys have your budget limits, like, no problem. That means with us, we can do these 2 zones. Or we can do it, but we're not going to take it back to you the same day. We're going to take it back to you the next day in the morning, and we pick up the next stuff. You have to buy 2 boxes or whatever. If you can negotiate with the characteristics of the delivery instead of the price, that can often be very helpful. So those are my 2 examples of how price calculation can be done. I think the second one is a basic exercise everyone should do, even if you don't have any existing clients that are looking for, or any new incoming clients. I think you should think about the different activities, quote unquote, you have. You should allocate your writing hours, your non-writing hours, and your fixed costs to those different things. And you should see, well, am I making money or losing money with my different activities? So what are some, actually, any more questions? Sorry, I only gave time I picked on Crow. But does anyone else have any other questions or comments about these systems? All right, bye, Hector. Thanks. All right, I think we probably only have like maybe 30 more minutes maximum. All right, so case studies. What are some examples? Number 1, bad initial negotiation. This is pretty common. We're desperate to have the client because we really, really need it, because we have no hours and we are poor and we need to start doing bike delivery. We have no data. As you can see, this maybe is an example of a new cooperative that started. And we took a pricing rule from a competitor in some other place. the pricing we got was €8 per drop until 7. Wow, this is Belgium again. €8 per drop until 70 kilos. €8 on top of that if it's over 70 kilos. The zone, we like forgot to think about the zone. After 1 year, we look at all this stuff and we do the simulation. We realize that we should be asking for 10.5 euros per point. So let's imagine this. You guys all walk out of here. Who am I going to pick on this time? You walk out of here and you do this price simulation and you realize that your prices are 30% lower than they should be. What are you going to do with your clients? All right, eeny, meeny, miny, crow crop. Does everyone know eeny, meeny, miny, mo? Sorry, that's an American thing. All right, crow crop, Jeffrey or Quinton. What are you guys doing? Any last mile or local commerce deliveries?
Yes, a bit last mile, but generally most of our deliveries are food tech.
What's your pricing look like?
We have some prices in function of distance. We have prices for cargo bike and for just for a simple bike.
So if you realize that you should up your prices by 30% with your last mile clients, how would you go about negotiating that?
That's the problem that we speak with Geoffrey. Sometimes we thought to on voulait baisser les prix, comment on appelle ça? Oui. We wanted to make lower prices, but we think if we need invest, it's a problem that we could meet. So personally, I don't want have lower prices, but we have not a lot of clients for the moment, just for the last mile. So that's the problem that we have. Our clients is in last mile they think we have too big prices, but that's a problem.
Cool. So yeah, it's a very common problem. And Ref, I don't know if but basically 100%. The client should choose between making the job easier or paying more for premium services. I would stress that local commerce, like the florist, the meat shop, all those people are often very, very open to making your job easier. They never understand your job, so they don't know what makes things harder or easier. So I would very much suggest explaining to them why things are hard or easy and asking them if they're able to maybe do stuff. So for example, with in our case, most of our local commerce deliveries, almost all of them are between 11 a.m. and 1 p.m. or 6 p.m. and 8 p.m. Because for us, it was useful to have a shift immediately before lunch and dinner to make shifts longer. So we made a lower price for those time ranges. And what happened is that almost all of our clients decided that they could do that. And so all of our fruit shops, all of our flower shops, they collect all of the deliveries and then we pick them all up at one time and we deliver them in a route. And we can do this because they tell their clients, they don't say, okay, when do you want it? They say, oh, you can either have between 11 and 1 or 6 and 8. And then we are able to do 1 pickup instead of 5 pickups. That was allowed us to make our prices lower. Sorry, that's a fly. The problem with big clients is they maybe know more about logistics, and that means they're going to be better at manipulating you. Sorry. So, complicated profitability with high demand, with on-demand. So, this happens with things like in France, a lot of Carrefour deliveries. So oftentimes you'll get a first big client, which has a lot of income for a month, but has low profitability because it requires a lot of shifts where people are available. And sometimes there's deliveries and sometimes there are not deliveries. This often happens that just because people were optimistic about how many deliveries there would be, or they made shift planning badly, you end up with too many hours for the deliveries and too low deliveries per hours. What's happened in these cases were specifically that was the opposite. This is a situation that I was coming from Nantes with Le Coursier Nantais and Adrien, if I remember correctly. And what they were able to do was by looking at those numbers, looking at the hours in which activities happened, they took out some of the delivery hours, which saved about 700 a month. And then they also negotiated with the Carrefour client to slightly increase the zone. Not by much, by a little bit, because there was one area that was helpful for them. It added 300 euros in turnover per month. And that by telling the client we're not going to work during these really low volume hours, and they didn't offer home delivery in those hours, and by increasing the zone a little bit, they were able to make it break even. Did I just get muted again? Could you hear me before?
Yes.
Okay.
I think it's when you continue with the slide. Maybe you can press the space or something like this. Is it possible? Can you mute yourself?
I don't think so.
No.
In theory, but okay. Anyways, so general path. Step 1: export your data from CoopCycle. We suggest using CoopCycle because we are CoopCycle. So if you use CoopCycle, you can export your data from it. Look at your biggest customers first. Look at the average distance. Look at the average weight, the average number of packages, and look at the average money per hour. You should start negotiating with the people that you have the lowest price per hour with. Compare all that stuff to the initial. So the first exercise is to go through one of these, right? One of these Excels to look at what are your conditions, what do you want to be paid, blah, 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 and you have an idea of what you should be earning per hour. Then you go into CoopCycle and you figure out what are you actually earning per hour per client. And then when they're different, you have to then start figuring out how to fix the problem. Oftentimes, it's as easy as going to the client and saying, hi, so here's the amount of money I need to make to not lose money. Here's what you're paying me. It's too low. See how I can't pay for stuff? So like, sorry guys, but we have to up the price. And it's pretty difficult for a client to say no to that. Like I did, when I was doing commercial negotiation for Eraman, I was very upfront. I was like, listen guys, my labor cost is 13.25 euros per hour, including vacation time. You think we should have vacation, right? Yeah, of course. Great, 13.25 euros an hour. Great, then you add on, of course, I have this commercial activity. We have a rent to pay. I just wrote it all down. It's like, look, we need to be making minimum 17 euros an hour or we can't offer this service. And we would hate to not be able to offer service to you guys because we really like you. We think it's a great collaboration. We think you guys don't want to hire some person yourself in order to do deliveries. That would probably be kind of expensive. So right now we're making with you guys 16 euros an hour. It needs to be a minimum of 17. We want to have a little bit of margin for error. So we're going to up our prices by 15% to get to 18 euros an hour. And there's not a lot a client can say to that other than no or yes, because they can only say, don't take vacation. They can only say, don't pay your rent. They can only say, right? It's not a very viable negotiation tactic on their part. And if they say, well, we can't afford that, you say, great, no problem. Call the other people. So that's a personal suggestion about how to negotiate. I go with full transparency. Like in other businesses, people are making extra money. There are other more capitalist businesses where people are making lots and lots of money with very high salaries by taking advantage of people. We aren't those. Those people can't show their numbers to a client because the client would say, what if you didn't have that like holiday vacation paid for trip to Hawaii from the business or something? If someone looks at our numbers, there's no free holiday paid to Hawaii, right? Lastly, assessing your acquisition cost. So if you're going to do commercial activities, we believe that you should do it like as a plan, not just sort of randomly, in which case it has a cost. The last page, so I'm going to go back to the last page here is acquisition cost. So similar idea. Here is a list of things that you have to do. Phone call. You probably have to call a client. You might have to call them 2 times. And it'll take another 15 minutes. And then you maybe probably have an hour-long meeting with them. Maybe you have a second meeting with them because they had to think about it and they had to go back. I don't know what RDV5 means. Offer. Well, it took you 30 minutes to make the offer, to write up the piece of paper with the proposal, with the email, with the whole thing. Then they emailed you back and you had to respond to them, and that took another 10 minutes. Actually, wait, sorry. These are in hours. I'm going to go with 5th meet. That makes sense. Thank you, Pierre. Okay, so let's imagine we didn't have a giant back and forth email battle. So if you have this is your idealistic break-even point of cost per hour. This has and this simply looks at, no, 1 second. Yes, this should be, sorry. This should be in ones. Equals 6. All right. So, what? I'm confused. Oh, so that's not supposed to be money. So that's total minutes. Format, number, just a number. Those are how many minutes this took. Number of stops per day were 90. Total margin, remember we said we wanted 15% margin. Monthly, there's 111 euro margin. Margin per stop is 1.24 euros. Acquisition cost in the number, what is it? This is the cost in minutes it took so this is how many stops it's going to take to pay for the time you spent doing the commercial acquisition. So again, this is I actually think I need to look at this briefly. Oh, I'm an idiot. It's because it's summing this one. Okay, so this is, sorry, I should have looked at this Excel. I didn't look at this last page very much before I did this class. This is making the cost of those 15 minutes. And this is the cost of that hour meeting. And this is the sum of all of that cost. So what this is saying is that to pay for the time it took to get this client, we need to do at least 56 deliveries. If we're doing commercial cost, maybe we have someone doing commercial regularly and someone's being paid 2,000 euros, 2,500 euros a month to do commercial. Well, then they need to be getting us this many new stops this year to pay for their own salary. So again, we're either in the world where you're not counting all of your hours and you're getting new clients as you can, and it's not a big deal. You do it like between deliveries, you don't count it. That's okay. But if you're gonna be a medium to large sized business, someone's gonna end up having to be paid to do that work. So figure out what you think an average cost of acquisition is. Maybe your list of things is a lot longer, maybe it's shorter. And then you know how successful you need to be in order to get that salary back. And remember that most of your commercial activities probably won't be successful. This is what a professional business does. A professional business looks at invoicing as an activity that is normal and regular and must be paid for by people who are experienced in it. And it needs to be paid for by the selling of products or services. Commercial activities. It is a serious thing that people get paid to do that needs to be both you have people checking to make sure that commercial people are doing a good job, and you need to take it seriously, have commercial people make sure they're paid, and figure out how you're going to pay for it with the products and services you sell as a business. Things to assess with your commercial acquisition cost. So it's very important, especially in the beginning. A lot of personal opinion here. A lot of projects remain in the situation where they don't have enough hours because they don't dedicate enough resources to commercial activities at the beginning. Like I said, it's also very careful. It's also something you need to measure very carefully. And most of our cooperatives would not be able to pay for a part-time or full-time commercial person right now. That's just the reality. So be careful with how many hours you dedicate to it. But also don't not do it, unfortunately. The tool hopefully is helpful in regards to assessing how good you are at commercial capture, and thereby assessing how you should go about doing it. Like maybe the person you have doing it isn't very, like, they're cheap. They don't count their hours, but they're really bad at it. That's not a successful commercial activity. Maybe it's better to pay someone some percentage of what you're going to earn and have them do the commercial activity, but actually do it well. And they get a higher price and they get clients to go on board it. A lot of messenger cooperatives, what they do is they say anyone who brings in a new client gets 5% of the income of that client for the next 6 months. That's super typical. And it's not how old school French, cooperatives work in the agricultural sector, but it's how messaging works, and that's okay. Whatever it is, make sure that it's a model that is politically viable. You're not outsourcing it to Microsoft, I don't know, and that is effective and within your price range. But yeah, don't have someone bad doing it for free and then not have new clients. That would be a pretty common situation that it doesn't help anyone. It doesn't help that person. It doesn't help the cooperative. That is the end of the presentation, and we're about 5 p.m. So I do need to quickly use the bathroom because I've been drinking a lot of water. Does anyone have any questions? Ideas? Does anyone want to talk about a problem they have? They want to say a super successful commercial price thing they did one time? Opening the floor. Go for it, Hector.
Yep. So in the end, didn't have to go. It was not today. But so my question is, our problem is that we, some of us, well, all of us have two jobs. So we have the cooperative and our other job. And then when we try to take the time to make this acquisition, I don't know how to pronounce this fucking word, but so it's either we don't have time or we do it like in the side of cycling, and it ends up like, well, this restaurant was interested, but then we didn't really like go after them, and then we don't really have new clients. So I don't know if maybe the thing is that we should have more people so that we do less hours and then we have more time, but then salaries are not enough. I don't know.
Yeah, that's a pretty common problem. There's no easy solution, obviously. Honestly, I would the way that I approach that, and what has sometimes worked and sometimes not worked in my cooperative, is the mission concept, because it's not helpful. Like what I want to stop doing is doing things halfway, because it wastes time, because nothing is done well halfway, right? Like things like invoicing, even, like it's just it's better to not do it at all strategically than to do it halfway. So what I would find is someone who's willing to say, well, for the next 2 months, I'm going to dedicate exactly this much time to it. And maybe it's not even paid. Maybe you can't afford to pay it right now. And maybe it's a situation where if they get clients, they'll get paid in the future based on income from those clients or something. Or they're just willing to do it because they believe in the project. Doesn't really matter. But like for me, we're in a cooperative enterprise, which means that one thing is, how are we going to organize the work in an effective manner? And another thing is, how are we going to pay ourselves? And the fact that we're not paid well, for me, is not an excuse to do something badly or halfway. It's an excuse to not do things because we can't pay for it and we're not willing to do it without being paid. That's fair. That's totally fair. But doing something halfway doesn't help anybody. So I would say, on the one hand, operationally decide, well, what's the mission that someone will do? And they'll do it not halfway, they'll do it full way. And then after we decide to do that, we'll decide how are we going to pay back that time. Is it money we have right now? Is it money we'll have in the future? Is it they get to be in every Instagram post? I don't know, right? But I really think that as a political and economic project, like there are two conversations. One is an operational economic conversation. Like, we need to do commercial capture right now because we don't have enough clients and we're going to die. Great. How are we going to do that? And then separately, okay, how are we paying each other? Because, and I say this a lot, in a cooperative, there are not salaries. Cooperatives can employ people, and those people have a right to a salary. But members of cooperatives do not have a right to a salary. What members of a cooperative have are rights to distribute future benefits or profits. Right now, we're in November. I'm getting paid a pay check from October. It's not real. We're going to have to see what happens at the end of the year, if there were profits or not, and then the members of us, we're responsible for it. So like right now, if I say, well, I want to be paid 50 euros an hour to do 40 hours of work, commercial work, everyone says, yes, great. Let's pay Paul 50 euros an hour to commercial work for a full-time position. Then we get to January and the accountant says, you guys lost 20 grand because Paul sucks at commercial. Like, then we all have to put back 20,000 euros into the cooperative. So at the end of the day, whether we're having the conversation or not, that's what the conversation is. One thing is what we need to do, and the other thing is how are we going to distribute the money we bring in this cooperative enterprise. And if we're not separating those two things out, we're actually lying to ourselves.
Okay, get it.
Any other questions? Sorry if that wasn't the most uplifting comment.
No, it's fine. It's fine. I mean, it's useful, and that's what I was looking for. So yeah.
All right. Well, I'm going to stop calling out people that I'm just vaguely interested in hearing from. And it seems like nobody has any more comments. And it's now 5 p.m., which theoretically these classes are 2.5 hours, but I think 2 hours is also okay. So thank you all for coming. And if you have any questions, feel free to ask in Slack. And probably tomorrow, I will make a copy of this Excel and make sure each one of you has it. I don't actually know who came to this meeting. Let me just really quickly take a note. We have here BFast. We have Graneros Pedala. We have Sikebule. Yeah, go ahead, Rolf.
Yes. Can I ask one more question?
Yeah, go ahead.
Do you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
Okay. I was wondering about your point of view, maybe of an idealistic way to acquire clients and to sell the services, but you told a lot of one person inside of the cooperative who is responsible and do the commercial and this work like administratively. And I'm wondering what's about the strategy to do it in a more collective way, and to organize ourselves, that every people on the street can sell the services and acquire new clients and explain, make some information, advertisement, and be like close to the client to listen to their needs and to more to feel the market. What do you think about this side of the maybe marketing?
So in my cooperative, what we've done is it's been rotating, but it has been that usually we have one person who's responsible at a time, but it's been rotated in different moments between different people. I think that that's a pretty valid sort of collective way of managing work. On the one hand, I don't believe in making one person do something forever. I think that's pretty dangerous. But it's also one model. It's not the only model. I really do think that there are some collectives that basically give permission to all of the members of the collective. Everyone says collectively, we trust ourselves. We trust everyone involved. And anyone can just go look for clients. And the way you reward that is by some of the future income is given to that person. I think as long as that's done in a democratic assembly environment, there's nothing wrong with that. That's the whole point of worker democracy, is that that's how people get to decide how they do the work. I think there's some obvious upsides to that as well. It's a very good model if you don't have money to invest. It's a very good model if you are trying to uplift workers. Basically, you don't want just messengers. You want people that are involved in the day-to-day activity. There's sort of two extremes. I think that if the idea is to involve everybody, I think it is helpful to have a smaller working group make things that make it easier. So something I've seen other collectives do is basically make like a set of materials, right? Like there's pamphlets with the pricing. Someone who's good at design makes a nice little pamphlet with the prices and the service offering. They print out a bunch and they make sure everyone has them in their backpacks. So when they're riding on the street, they see a shop, they're like, oh, I could maybe talk to them. They have the material prepared to give them. Using a CRM, which is a client relations management, which is a really fancy way of saying an Excel, like putting all the clients in one place and writing down, well, I visited them and they were interested, but then I was going to visit them again and I forgot. That you can end up having a list of who, like, hey, if anyone wants to go visit people, like, here's the list of clients that we talked to before, we haven't had time to get back to them, right? So there's ways to facilitate, there's systems and processes that can be used to facilitate decentralized commercial capture. But I think it would require a person or a working group making some material, making some plans, making some prices, right? You're asking a lot of someone to just go propose work to people. So if you can make that easier for them,